Hello friends. Till now what we have done is we have migrated all the users from 389 directory server on infra to IPA server, and we have migrated all the clients to authenticate against IPA server now. If you are talking about any IPA server, it has a lot of services running on it. Kerberos based service, it has internal Ldap, certification authority, and TP server, name server. So in case it goes down, you have a lot of services which are not available. Basically, if you are talking about DNS service, that's very critical to you. Secondly, what if it crashes? You need to bring up a new machine, and that could take a lot of time. So you can set up multi-master replication between the two IPA servers. So in this session, what we are going to do is we are going to set up a multi-master replication between IPA and IPA2 server so that they are always kept replicated with each other with the updated database, and in case one of them goes down or crashes, users will still be able to access the services using the other server. Okay, so coming on to this is IPA2, and let's open a session for IPA.labs.local and try to understand how it works. Okay, the name server is 204, should be fine. I think I have also assigned, yeah, I have also sent static IP address to it. Cat etc sysconfig network scripts if cfg etl0. It should always be static. Right now it's dhcp. But it's suggested to have static IP address so that it doesn't modify due to any of the reasons. So we can just mark it as static, or okay, which is this machine. So I need to do a small modifications. Infra.labs.local. Now as we have migrated to IPA server, so all the DHCP clients should be getting the new name server, which is IPA. So we modified this section option domain name servers to use ipa.labs.local. ipa.labs.local, and we just restart the name service. Oh sorry, it's DHCP. Fine. So other thing is, if you are talking about IPA server, it should have a static IP address. Let me set static IP address to it. Sysconfig network scripts if cfg eth0. IPADDR 192.168.1.204, netmask 255.255.255.0, and gateway 192.168.1.1. Fine. And resolve.conf should point to the name server 192.168.1.204. Fine. IPA CTL status. In the last section we stopped all the services of IPA. So if we talk about any client, for example, we are talking about a test VM. I can log in as my offline credentials, but the DNS service will still not be available. Let me see. etc resolve.conf, and I'm using 204. That is fine. Or nslookup yahoo.com. So nothing is going to work. Login is fine, but you are missing some of the services like DNS. So you should have a backup of IPA server. Let me start the services. So now my resolutions are working fine. DNS is working fine. Okay. Now the objective is to have a backup of IPA server so that it is always replicated. If we go to the directory /etc dirserv, we can see that there are two slapd instances or two Ldap directory server instances running on it. One is corresponding to your domain, for which it's labs.local, and other is corresponding to the certification authority. So if we are talking about replication or multi-master application between the two IPA servers, both of these should be replicated. Okay, so the first thing that needs to be done at the server is we will be preparing replica prepare IP address of IPA2, which is 192.168.1.207, and secondly FQDN, which is IPA2.labs.local. So what it is going to do is it is going to create a DNS entry corresponding to it, and will create a GPG encrypted file that will be used by IPA2 or the replica server. So sorry, my name is wrong. It is IPA2.labs.local and IP is fine. I just press enter. Now it asks me for the directory manager password of IPA, so that is manager at 123. So it's preparing a replica IPA2. So it's just preparing a file for it and just having a preparation for the IPA replication agreement, as we have already discussed in the previous section where we replicated 389 directory server. This is a replication agreement that works between the 389 directory servers that is responsible for sending the updates. Fine. So here it says a DNS record has been created in both forward and reverse lookup, and a file has been created. Fine. If you are coming to the replica server, the thing that we have to do is we have to install IPA server on it. Click on yes. It says failure package. Okay. Infra repo, it was not able to fetch the package. Okay, nslookup is fine. If you are talking about media /media, and we have CentOS here, that is fine. /etc init.d httpd status is running. Var log httpd error log yum install IPA server fetches out from the infra repo /etc yum.repos.d labs.repo, and here we can see what maybe I have a wrong repository. CentOS 63 repository is fine. And it has the visibility to the package. Error downloading the packages, failure, package is missing. Okay. I think due to some reason this package is missing. Package is here. So what's the issue? Let me try to do wget and let's see. It was connected to it, but this file was not found. Not found. Okay. Okay. Sorry. The mistake is there. It's pointing to 204. My mistake. Actually, it should be 205 for infra. And I should also have an entry for 204, which is actually what's the IP address? 204. Okay, this is for IPA. Okay, so let's try to install IPA Server. Now the two important thing that we did is we installed IPA Server on Replica and we created a replica file on this IPA, which is the master server. So let's just copy the file which is created in varlib IPA replica to the server, which is IPA2 varlib IPA. Okay, the file is copied. This file actually has the details about the replication agreements, and this file can be used only by IPA2 because we specified the details of IPA2 when creating it. So don't try to use it on IPA3, 4 or any other server. Coming on to the client, or you can say replica, IPA replica prepare --help. IPA is not, sorry, it's actually IPA replica install help. IPA Replica prepare is going to work on the master server, and IPA Replica install is going to work on slave server. So we need to set up DNS and we need to set up CA on it. And finally, it should have the details about the file that contains the information about replication. So that is where lib IPA replica. So if you are trying to set up the replication, it needs to either be specified forwarder or you need to specify no forwarders. So forwarder 192.168.1.205, which is infra server. And we are missing one more thing, which is bind dynamic DB Ldap. This is a module which allows bind to interact with the Ldap database or the directory server database, because if we are talking about IPA, all the details including the zone details are saved in 389 directory server. So bind should be able to interact with it, and it should be able to update dynamically to the Ldap database corresponding to the zones and records. So let's install it. Now IPA Replica install command. Here it asks me for the details of the directory manager. It's actually the password corresponding to this GPG file. So here it opens and it checks out a few things. It checks out the connection from IPA2 to IPA, which is the master server, and it says it was not able to connect to CA server. So let's open the port for the slave -I IPA -P TCP -S 192.168.1 dot. What's the IP corresponding to IPA2? It's 207 minus D port. What was the port corresponding to certification authority? So it's 7389 minus J accept, and service IP tables save. Okay, let's try to run it once again. And here it checks out the connection from this server, that is a replica server, to the master server, and it says connection to directory service 389, okay, directory server secure port 636, fine, Kerberos password, HTTP, HTTPS, and PKI. So all the connections were fine, perfect. It's not able to connect or check out the ports corresponding to UDP, which was 88464. You can make sure about the same. And UDP 88 and 464 are allowed, so you are fine with it. Now at the second step, what it is going to do, it's going to run a Python script that is going to open the ports at a replica server. Let me show you. Open a duplicate session. Here, if you have a look into it, you will see that Python script has opened certain ports. That is TCP 389, 636. So actually it's behaving like an IPA server, and it'll try to connect to the remote server, which is IPA, and will say whether the connections are fine in the other direction or not. So actually it's behaving as a fake IPA server, and it will connect or log in into IPA through SSH, and will run a script from here and make sure that the ports are opened or not. For this reason, it's asking us for the details of admin password to log in into IPA server. So before it runs the test, let's make sure whether the ports are open. IP tables minus n, IPA will have to open them. IPA, I'll just copy the configuration from it for IPA sysconfig IP tables, and I will add these rules vim/etc sysconfig OK service IP tables save /etc sysconfig IP tables, and here at the end I'll add some more rules which are corresponding to IPA, and here I'll modify it to use the IP address of IPA1, which is that is 204. So I'm allowing this IPA server to coordinate with the certificate authority, and other ports are for the complete network. I save and restart networking. Sorry, restart IP tables. IP tables restart. So let me see. Here I can see that IPA rules are all imported. Fine. Now I am going to provide it the password for admin user, admin@123. Okay. Cannot acquire Kerberos ticket. Clock skew too great while getting initial credentials. So the issue is with the time. If you try to match the time, it's to 13 and 15. There's a lot of difference. So let me check out the status of NTP. Let's stop. So NTP date ipa.labs.local. So it has synced the time from it. If you see the date now, 13:55, so time is synced. Now let's run IPA replica install once again. Manager at 123, it has decrypted and checked out the connection from IPA2 to IPA. Now to check out the reverse connections, it has opened certain ports by using Python scripts, and here are 389, 80, and all the ports as required by IPA are opened. Now admin at 123, it will log in into IPA server, which is master server, execute check on remote. So it's now inside IPA server, and it makes connections from IPA to replica, which is IPA2, and here it says the status of directory service 389, 436, 88. So all the required ports will be checked by this script from this master end also. After it was able to check out the connections and the connection were all fine, it started configuring NTPD and other services for it. So if you just remove Python from it, so it has stopped listening to that because the tests were all completed, so it's not required to run this script till now. So what it's doing is it configured NTP, because if you are talking about Kerberos based environment, I have said this thing a lot of times, that time is very critical. time should be synced between all the servers and all the clients so that you are able to access the services of Kerberos. Configured NTP, stopped NTP, writing configuration, configuring NTPD to start at boot, chk config NTPD on. So first part it does with NTP, then it comes to directory server for CA, that is /dpki. Creating directory server user and instance, restarting directory server. Then it does certificate server configuration, creating PKICA instance, certificate server instance, and let's wait for the completion of it. Restarting the directory and certificate servers. Okay, adding default schema, member of plugin, referential integrity, enabling WinSync. This is also an important part, and WinSync is a plugin which is enabled as soon as you install 389 directory server. This is important when we are going to set up a replication agreement between a Windows server and this IPA server. So adding replication ACIs, starting key distribution center, publishing CA certificate, creating a key tab for HTTPD, cleaning up existing HTTPD cache, and configuring SLNX for it. Now, how do you see whether the replication has been done between this IPA and IPA2? IPA replica manage is a command that can be used, and it has multiple options. Most important ones are IPA replica manage minus minus or just list. So it is going to list the replication agreements that it has between this server and the other servers, and here you can see now it displays two things. One is ipa2.labs.local and other is ipa.labs.local. So it means that there is a replication agreement between this IPA server and IPA2 server. So it's still working on it, adding name server records, setting up reverse zone, configuring named, restarting the web server. Global DNS configuration is empty, but you can use DNS config mode to modify it. Restarting the web server. So it's about to complete. And as soon as the replication is completed, you will see that all your users that were present on IPA server have been migrated to IPA2. So in the meantime, you could have a look into the GUI, ipa.labs.local. This is the older one. Form-based authentication. Now a separate instance for IPA2.labs.local. We'll use form-based authentication admin at 123. It's about to restart it. Still working on it. Yeah, it's completed with it. Now, if you have a look into the details in IPA2, you can see that users have been migrated, your groups have been migrated, your DNS entries for labs.local. Here you can see that your service records are also created for IPA2, and you have the DNS entries for IPA and IPA2 both. So from now onwards, whatever details we have on this server will be kept replicated with this one. So both of them are working as a multi-master one. Whatever we modify on one will be available on the other one. If you want to check out the replication agreements between IPA2, the replica server, and between this IPA2 and all other servers, this can be seen by the same command, replica manage. So here you can see that there is a replication agreement, mutual replication agreement between IPA and IPA2. So the things are all kept replicated between these two. So let's try to add a new user here. Ldap, or let's make it Ldap for last name anything, Ldap for at 123, for at 123, and we are just done with it. If you refresh, you'll be able to see Ldap for. If you come to user list, here you can see Ldap 4 is created. Let's create a new user, Ldap 5 on IPA2 this time. So this is created on IPA2, the replica one. Coming on to the first one, which is the master one, and just refreshing it, here we can see that the entry has been created. So the same thing happens for the groups, hosts, sudos, and everything else. So it's actually the complete replication of two directory servers. One is corresponding to the certification authority, and other is corresponding to your base, which is dc equal to labs comma dc equal to local in our environment. Okay, so that's it. We are done with the multi-master application between IPA and IPA